Hey everyone, it's Aubrey, recovering perfectionist, queen of distraction, and here we are. 2024 has come to an end. It was a great year for us, but over the course of the last couple months, we've done a lot more entertaining than we're normally doing on a regular basis. A bit more gift giving happened than I intended, so it is time to give ourselves a little bit of a financial reset with a no spend month. Today we're going to chat about how my family is going to make that happen and how you can as well. So why plan for a no or low spend month? Obviously, that kind of depends on you as an individual. For us, initially back in September, after a summer of fun and a little bit too much spending, we challenged ourselves to our first ever no spend month. And looking back, I can honestly say that the results were amazing. Not just when it came to the money that we saved and the debt that we were able to pay off, but the mental reset that I got personally when it came to my shopping habits. We ate so much food that was otherwise being ignored, stuff in the back of our pantry, things that I forget about in the freezer. And I really felt like during that month, I channeled like the thrifty, resourceful, and crafty mom that I really aspire to be. It was really such an eye-opening experience, and I really just recommend that everybody does this at some point in their lives. Whether you're looking to put some money in savings, pay off debt, or for anyone like me who wanted to kind of regain some sense of self-control when it came to spending habits, or just the opportunity to get a better grasp on your financial reality. And bonus, there's nothing like a New Year's resolution that doesn't involve exercising. So whether this is something that you're totally down for or something that you feel maybe a little bit overwhelmed by, like I was initially, I think that either way, it's important to define your goal. So why are you doing a no spend month? Is it to save money, reduce debt, or something else? Like I said, for us, we are just trying to kind of recover from the financial impact of the last few months, pay off a little bit of debt, and then hopefully save a little. If you've never done a no spend challenge before, I think that initially this can be really overwhelming and you may be feeling like there is no way in heck that I'm actually going to be able to make that happen. That's 100% where I was. I felt like the idea of a no spend month was far too overwhelming. There were just so many wheels turning around in my head with the what ifs, until I finally watched a couple videos, read a couple blog posts, and the information that I got from those was really eye-opening to the fact that I can make this challenge work for me. There were a few unwritten rules that I felt like I needed to bend to make this challenge successful for me. But I feel like when you go into a challenge like this, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's really important to identify your expectations. So obviously we'll have responsibilities like bills, paying mortgage, rent, car insurance, this, that, and the other, like medical expenses, the unexciting stuff that comes with being a responsible adult. Those are obviously non-negotiables. If you have pets, like we have a cat and chickens, so if the critters run out of food, everybody will be fed. And then another thing that I think is really important to talk about is have this conversation with your family, get your people involved in this with you, make it a team effort, but then also know that you only have so much control. Like for me, while my husband was extremely supportive and did really participate in the no spend challenge that we did back in September, based on how that month did go, moving forward, I will probably anticipate a couple random purchases from him. In September, it was a lawnmower. We'll see where this next month takes us. And then while my kids are along for the ride, because I said so, back in September, I did choose to keep our weekly, once a week trip that we take after school on Wednesdays down to the corner store for each of the boys to pick a treat. I'm going to keep that trend this time around. I'm not going to take that away. I did not regret it in September, and I don't think I'll regret it now. $5-10 a week is not going to make or break this challenge. There will be plenty of other opportunities where I will have to have a conversation with the boys about, why we're not spending any money this month, this, that, and the other, but that's just not one thing that I feel like I want to take away from them. So next, let's talk a little bit more about planning for this. And while with challenges like this, I really tend to wing it, and it's kind of a last minute decision. That is how we ended up doing no screens for most of November and some of December. Stay tuned for that video at some point. But obviously, to have a really successful no or low spend month, it is really helpful to have some kind of game plan for when you find yourself in situations like, oh, I didn't plan for dinner tonight, and normally you'd be running to the grocery store, but hey, it's a no spend month. You don't get to run out to the grocery store. You're not going to order pizza or go out to dinner. So just being a little bit more mindful about planning ahead, especially when it comes to food. Pack a few extra snacks when you leave the house. Pack your lunch. We all need to eat. Which brings me to talking about a grocery budget. Initially, when I was thinking about doing a no spend month, I felt really overwhelmed by food. Now, we have a freezer out in our garage that is stuffed with fish, a freezer in the house that is full, a pantry with tons of stuff that we need to use. But I was like, what about when we run out of fresh produce? And it was just like this crippling thing. And one of the blog posts that I had read, like, had this brilliant idea of setting yourself a grocery budget. I don't know why I didn't think that that was a possibility, but there we are. So while back in September, our garden was in full swing, we had more blackberries growing than we could really realistically handle. Setting a $50 food budget was reasonable for us at that moment in time. Now, obviously, this is going to be happening in January. I've got a few lingering kale plants in the garden and a 40-pound pumpkin on my front porch. And I know that those things are really only going to get me so far. So this time around, I'm going to be setting us a $100 food budget. We didn't really dip into our food budget in September, so I think that $100 will be fine. That's more than likely going to be going to any fresh produce, and I think that to stretch that as far as possible, I'll probably end up avoiding shopping at the grocery store that's closest to me. I might drive a little bit out of my way to go to a more discount kind of grocery store like Grocery Outlet, and then probably not buying as much organic as I'm normally buying, just to stretch that $100 for the month. And then I do make my own bread, so that also really helps. I really want to make a sourdough loaf, but I'm so scared. I've had a sourdough starter in my fridge for a long time now, and I still have not made a loaf of sourdough bread. So that's that. But when it comes to using the food that you already have, I really hate meal planning. I do not like it at all. I'm not good at it. It just does not work for my brain. And maybe that's just my own personal laziness, but when it came to this challenge, I was kind of forced to get good at it, or at least get good at actually pulling meat out of the freezer the night before. I am so very good at putting that off. But by being in a situation where I really am relying on those things in the freezer a lot more than I normally would be, it forces me to actually use them and plan in advance. This challenge is really such a great way to get creative in the kitchen and really discover and utilize like the abundance of culinary creativity there is out there on the internet. Remember, substitutes are your friend. You'd really be shocked at how forgiving most recipes can be. Most ingredients have an alternative option, and it really is kind of mind-blowing how many prepackaged things that you would be finding in the grocery store that you can actually make at home, like marshmallows. I made marshmallows in September, and I will tell you they are probably some of the best marshmallows that I've ever actually had in my entire life. And while a big part of the goal is to really be focusing on using what you have, I do think that as you lead up to your no spend month, it doesn't hurt to keep an eye on sales at the grocery store, specifically the things that you're using on a regular basis. I'm not saying like if cans of tuna are on sale, don't go out and buy 10 cans of tuna when you don't like canned tuna. I'm talking about like if you know how much milk your family is going to be drinking or you're going to be baking with over the course of a month, and milk is reduced because it's going to be going bad next week, buy the milk, put it in your freezer, which I would normally be doing anyway, but just stock up, but obviously be mindful of the fact that you are also trying to use what you already have. You can always fall back on the grocery budget if you really need to.
Okay, so hi, editing Aubrey here. One thing I did forget to talk about is kids' activities. I remember kind of initially feeling overwhelmed, like my kids aren't going to have enough to do. During September, it really was not a big issue at all. My oldest was going back to school, so it was just my youngest that I needed to entertain. And really on a regular basis, like other than summer break, there's not a whole lot that we're doing that is really, costing money as far as activities go. But I do think that if there is a situation where you want to plan some kind of activities for your kids, there are a lot of free activities that are put on by like the library. Also, the library is a great outing option. The park, it is like the cooler time of year, so the park, I really don't want to go. But I guess just get creative, try and find free events, maybe schedule a couple extra play dates that you wouldn't normally have on your books. And that's all I have to say about that. So moving on.
And now another thing that kind of felt overwhelming for me looking back as I was planning this was I was worried about gifts. Like, what if I need to buy a gift for somebody? What if I have a baby shower or something that I need to give somebody something? So I think, you can always purchase something in advance, but also why not take this opportunity to get creative with a handmade something or other? You can always give the gift of a homemade meal or hey, like lunch or dinner on me, let's go out to eat, but it has to be in a couple months kind of gift. Or chances are you may already have something around your house that you don't use anymore. And I think that like the idea of giving a gift of something that you no longer use anymore is, I don't know, like, is it frowned upon? I don't care if somebody gives me something that they don't use anymore that they know that I'd like. I remember one time there was a toy excavator that my son didn't play with anymore. And I had asked my friend if she wanted it for her son. And she said, yeah, give that to him for his birthday. So I don't know. I hope that's not something that's frowned upon. I'm sure that there are people out there that would be like, oh, why are you getting me something old of yours. But regardless of how you feel about giving or receiving secondhand gifts, Pinterest is your friend in this situation. Alrighty, so next, let's chat about tracking progress. Making it through this month is a big deal, and I think that it is important to document and acknowledge it. And this means successes and failures. So document the things that feel like wins, write it down, take a picture. If your husband buys a riding lawnmower off of Facebook Marketplace, write it down. Do this in whatever way works for you. And when it comes to calculating your savings at the end of this month, you may end up finding an easier way to do this than I did. Basically, what I ended up doing is I went back and I looked through 6 months of pie charts on my bank and credit card statements. That way I was able to get an idea of the average on what we spend in a month. And so I calculated that we pretty much saved almost $3,000. And I think that pretty much all online banking systems have some kind of spending tracker that categorizes where your money is going. But if you end up finding a simpler way to figure this all out, let me know. So the last thing that I want to talk about is holding yourself accountable. Obviously, this challenge is a big deal. There are a lot of temptations. I found it personally helpful for me to just delete any shopping apps off of my phone. And then looking forward to filming the how the month went video was another thing that really kept me accountable over the course of September when we were doing our first no spend challenge. So as you go through your month, you're just going to have to decide what holding yourself accountable is going to look like for you, whether that's posting on social media, calling a friend, marking days off on your calendar, or giving yourself some kind of reward to look forward to at the end of the month. For me, I highly recommend declaring your goals and intent to thousands of strangers on the internet. The month will be long, but it will be over before you know it. And the reward at the end, it won't just be financial. It will be a real sense of accomplishment. And if you're anything like me, you will have a very fresh perspective on what you actually need and use. And you may have the urge to rent a dumpster, throw everything away, and become a minimalist. But regardless of how you construct your no spend, low spend challenge, I highly recommend giving it a go. I'm even kind of dabbling in the thought of doing a no spend January and February, but we shall see. If you'd like to see how things went for me back in September, I did do a pre-challenge video and an after-challenge video, so I'll link those in the description below. And really, I would love to talk more about this, but for now, let's meet in the comments, continue this chat. I'm curious to hear about the experience of anyone who has done a no or low spend challenge in the past. And then if you are considering a no spend, low spend challenge, but are feeling overwhelmed, what's holding you back? I'd love to give some encouragement in that department. But that's all for today. If you're not yet subscribed and you'd like to hang out in the future, you are invited. I appreciate you taking a chunk out of your day to tag along with me. I hope to see you in the next one. As always, I love you. Have fun and be kind.